Welcome, Taryn. I'm
Thanks.
really, really thrilled to have you on today's episode because it's one thing to speak with entrepreneurs who are grinding it out and killing themselves every single day. But, a big reason why I'm hosting the Mindfulpreneur podcast is to speak with entrepreneurs like you that are very much like focused on leading with their values first. And the way that you lead the Mind Rebel Academy is really as a soul-led business. So we're going to get into all of what that means. But for anyone who's like, what the heck is that? What does that mean to you running a soul-led business?
Mm. It means it means allowing something deep, deep, deep within you to lead the way versus the craziness and the busyness of our strategic minds. And I think our strategic minds are important in running a
Yeah.
business, but there is, I believe within every single one of us, there is a very still, calm, wise voice within that knows something that this part of our minds, they don't know yet, or they don't have all the access to the information yet. And so building a soul-led business means letting that part of us lead the way.
Mm. Kind of like your gut, right? That's what it sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah. Your gut, your intuition, your deeper knowing, your wisdom. It's how do we access that? And how do we know when that part of ourselves is speaking? How do
Mm.
we discern that part of ourselves between all the other loud parts of ourselves? And then how do we understand, how do we dissect it? How do we understand where it's guiding us? How do we know where it wants to take us?
Right. And so like I will literally throw all those questions back at you because it's like it's so much easier said than done. Everyone can say like, "Oh, follow your gut, follow your gut." But I feel like it's just kind of thrown out there and people don't
Yeah.
really understand like what that is and what that means and how that feels inside because ultimately it is, a feeling. And that's
Yeah.
something that I'm trying to get more in touch with as well because I've made some decisions more on impulse, and I think I mistaken impulse with gut before because I was like, oh, like more the
Mm.
eagerness and the excitedness about like wanting to move forward and making that decision, but then there's like the rational side of me that's like, maybe I should have like looked into it a little bit more or really like gotten in tune with myself and how I was feeling in that moment. Like, was it just excitement or was it like nervousness? What was it that was, because, if I look back, I'm like, shit, like maybe that was a warning.
Yeah.
Like how would you recommend someone try and get in touch
Oh,
with that? It's tough.
okay. I love that. And I think so many people, I know I can relate to that. I think so
Mm,
many people can relate to that. And you're right. Advice that's thrown at us, like trust your gut, isn't actually, I don't think that's sound advice.
right.
In fact, I think that, I know for me, and you can tell me if this feels true for you or not, but I know for me, my business decisions, or I should back up. I know for me that I call it my soul, but you can call, sometimes that word has negative connotations for people. You can call it your wisdom, your intuition, your
Hmm.
gut. What you can call it whatever you want. I'm going to call it soul because that's just the word I love to use. I
Right.
like to believe there's something beyond me that's guiding me in me.
Hmm.
um,
Agreed.
and my soul doesn't speak to me when I'm super excited or when I'm super low.
Oh, interesting.
So when I have the waves of excitement, I need to actually let that wave of excitement come. And I
Hmm.
need to actually also let it crash because that also happens after a wave of excitement. Then maybe some fear creeps in or some doubts or limiting beliefs creep in. I actually have to let that entire wave happen. And then I come to some kind of equilibrium in the middle. And that's where I find the truth of my knowing, the truth of my soul. And
Mm.
that's where I can find the yes, no, not now. Focus on this, focus on that. That's the, I need to let myself ride that wave of
Yeah.
excitement and fear to
So
get
do
to
you
that place.
do you
Sorry.
suggest that like someone else do that too? It's like kind of start to recognize how you're feeling in the moment, be like, I feel maybe I'm a little bit like excited about this. Let me ride that for now,
Yeah.
let it pass. What about like someone who like feels like they have a sense of urgency to make a decision though? Because I feel like how long could this wave last? This could be a massive wave.
such great questions. It could be a massive wave. And we can also get wrapped up in like the paralysis analysis of indecision,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think that the answer to that question is going to be different for everyone
And every situation, I bet
and
too.
every situation. So
Yeah.
here's something I detest in business. I detest high pressure sales.
Mm.
I detest it. I can't
Okay,
because of me.
elaborate on what high pressure sales is to you.
I really don't like the feeling of being on the receiving end of a sales call or a discovery
Got it.
call and needing to make a decision immediately because there's a sense of urgency or there's a discount on the other end of me making a
They're
quick
like pushing
decision,
you. Yeah, they're
pushing
like
me,
pushing you to make that choice.
get your credit card out and give it to me over. I don't like it. It doesn't feel
Yeah.
good to me. It doesn't allow me my natural process of needing to ride a wave to make a really solid, firm decision for myself.
Hmm.
So here's an example of leading what leading a soul-led business looks like and feels like is that I've been taught that method of sales and I've tried it and it
Mm.
just didn't feel good to me. It didn't feel good. It didn't feel good for me to be on the end of doing it to another human.
Yeah.
And so I chucked that out. Like I took pieces of, it's just like anything we learn from business mentors or business experts. You take the pieces, you try it on, and you have to get to a place within yourself that feels right and true and good, and let that part of yourself lead the way.
Mm.
And so now when I think about, I don't do my own discovery calls anymore, but we have a director of admissions who does our discovery calls. And it is so important that for me that she holds space for whoever she's on a discovery call with. And there's no pressure. The only urgency that is there is a start date of our program, right? And availability of
Right.
seats in the program. But
Mm-hmm.
there's none of that urgency or high pressure, because what I want as a business owner, the only thing worse than not getting the sale is getting the wrong sale.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
People don't
Having,
talk about that enough because,
oh,
yeah, I feel it's a little different. I think it's more in like service-based businesses. This would be more relevant.
yeah. Yes,
We're
definitely.
interviewing like the clients as much as the clients are interviewing us, right? Like we want to make sure that
Absolutely.
it's a good fit, not only for ourselves, but like our team. We're responsible for everyone else involved. So if, you're bringing someone on that's not in line or that, is going to give us a headache or that doesn't share the same values, it's like there's going to be conflict, there's going to be issues. And it's like, it's not worth the
Yeah. It's
headache.
not. No.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, the other person on the other end of whatever service you're selling, you want them to also ride that wave for themselves and get to a
Yeah.
really soul aligned yes to buy your
Yeah.
product or to buy your service.
I feel like with Nomad Creative, like we have that approach, or at least like I do when I speak. I'm the one who's still doing the sales with Nomad
Yeah.
Creative. I love really speaking to the entrepreneurs, the business owners, or if it's like the marketing lead, whoever it may be, depending on like the size of the organization, and acknowledging the fact that they are going to be interviewing other agencies, like giving them that space, letting them know, be like, hey, like we'll have this ready for you. Of course, like do your due diligence. We really want to make sure that this aligns. If you have any questions, let us know. Really leaving that open-ended and not like pressuring and pushing. And
Yeah.
it's making me think actually, because I've, for my own research, gone through a few other people's like sales funnels of coaches for different like business type, whatever offers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they're like very, very aggressive sales funnels. The
Mm-hmm.
second you plug in your email, you have like 3 videos to watch. You have to respond to a series of questions that says like, are you sure you're going to make it to the meeting? Because if you don't make it to the meeting, like we're not going to meet you for the second time because we're only here to speak with serious people. And because I've done it a few times, like literally just to see their funnel.
Yeah.
They probably don't like
Market
that, but
research.
yeah, exactly. And then they get the text messages and then the multiple emails. And it's like, it's interesting because I was at some point like almost like, am I being like convinced or manipulated? And then like
Mm.
when it comes to making the final decision, I feel like it's not necessarily like in line or what I want, but I feel like they've done a really good job at selling me, So it's kind
Yeah.
of like an interesting perspective of like, where do you draw the line of being good in sales and like running a business and making sure that people, sign with you and you have clients versus letting them really kind of make that decision themselves. So like, how have you been able to navigate that and really make sure that your business still grows and runs?
Mm-hmm. Because strategy is important.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's this fine balance I've found between strategy, like building a funnel
Yeah.
or having a nurture sequence or having the right processes in place, having marketing, and letting your soul lead the way. So I'll tell you, I've had experiences where my mind, I call it your rebel mind, has led the way and made decisions, choices, and actions in my business, and has really led the way. And whenever my rebel mind is activated and leading the way, I am making decisions rooted in some kind of fear or
Mm-hmm.
scarcity or lack or not enough. So that could look like, oh, I need more sales, or I need more clients, or it could look like, oh, I'm not doing enough. Like all these other, coaching schools are doing it this way. Like we're not doing enough here. So whenever a decision is coming from that, is like touching that energy,
Mm-hmm.
my rebel mind is leading the way.
Yeah. I feel like that's probably most people's like
Yes.
common mind, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And when that part of me leads the way, I'm off in the bushes. I'm off on like some kind of detoured route of life. And I've made some very, 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 I've had some very, very expensive lessons in the detoured route,
I hear you, sister.
right? When I've made decisions coming from that energy.
Mm-hmm.
when I'm on when I'm making decisions in alignment with my soul, I'm in this energy of, I'm touching the energy of um openness, of flow, of trust, of surrender, of potentiality. And when I'm in alignment, I actually picture it like we're on this path. And when we're in that place of alignment, we have access to that deeper knowing within that actually knows the quickest route from where we are today to where we want to be.
Mm.
And I think that one of the most important things that we need to do is first to really define where it is that we want to go. Like, what is it that we want to create with our businesses as entrepreneurs? Like, what is it that we want to create? And if we don't have the answer to that question, we could be operating in some kind of default mode,
Yeah.
right? So I ask myself that question almost every day. I journal
Mm.
about that question constantly because I think the answer to that question is ever evolving and ever changing, because we are ever evolving and ever changing.
Yeah.
What is it that we want to create? If our businesses are this outlet for like pure creativity, which is essentially what we're doing here, we're creating things out of nothing, which is so cool. But what is it that we want to create? What's the life we want to experience? What do we want our businesses to bring us? So that includes financial goals. It includes things like freedom. It includes the way you want to impact the world, and getting really clear about what's the vision. So I call that
Mm.
what is your vision? That's your North
Mm-hmm.
Star. Go ahead.
I was
Yeah.
going to say, so when you're like coaching these world-class leaders
Yeah.
and supporting them and helping them find this vision, how can someone get to the point where they really understand, or you mentioned journaling and asking yourself those
Yeah.
questions, but I don't know, I feel like it's a little deeper than that.
Yeah. And so I think that it's a contemplation around. So, when I work with our coaches, and they work to define what their vision is,
Hmm.
we go through a process where they start to, first and foremost, they start to define those other voices. We just touched on like the rebel mind voices that
Yeah.
are anchored in fear and lack and scarcity. Let's actually define what that is, because that's not going to get us there. It's not going to get us towards our vision. And recognizing what that is, we can then start to ask ourselves, okay, if that's not it, if that's not who I am or what I want, what do I actually want?
Mm,
What is it? And I call these yearnings, not just a need or a want, it's a yearning. And a yearning is like peeling back the layers. For example, I want to earn $1 million in my business this year. That's kind of a superficial want. Nothing wrong with
right.
superficial wants, but it's
Hmm.
very surface level superficial. If you want to access the real like creative power of a vision, start to peel back the layers of those wants. Why do you want that?
Hmm.
And keep asking yourself why until you get to the seed of the yearning of that want, and that's powerful. So, you know, so if I were to answer that question, it might be, why do I want to earn $1 million in my business? I want financial abundance. I want, um, I want freedom, financial freedom. I want to employ more people in my work so that I can, I can help give them financial freedom. So you're peeling it back to get to the actual yearning,
Mm.
and that becomes more potent and more like way juicier than, I'd like to earn $1 million this year, you know?
Yeah. And I've heard of that doing that exercise before too. I've just never thought to apply it in my business, which is
Oh,
interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like I've done that before where, like let's say I'm dealing with something personally or, more of like a personal growth situation where it's like I'm feeling this way. Then I ask why? Because da da da. Why? Because da
Mhm.
da da da. Why? And you keep going why until you get to that final answer where you're like, ah, makes
Mm.
sense. I'm going
Yeah.
to I'm going to do that. I'm actually going to do that for Nomad Creative because yeah, I feel like we're due.
It's such a fun process.
Yeah.
And it's also a very revealing process.
I think revealing is like the key thing there because I think most people operate from that place of like, it's a system. This is the way we're supposed to do things. We're going to copy paste the model that we're used to seeing. And I think that kind of like stunts innovation too and creativity because you're just
Mhm.
kind of following someone else's steps. And then you get into this pattern and this loop of like, this is just what it is. This is what we do instead of how can we do things better or different or in a way that fulfills me and my team better. And I feel like I can
Absolutely.
actually do a better job at that myself. I feel like I'm kind of at this point where it's like, we've been running this machine, it works. I always like pride myself on leading a values
Mhm.
led business, which means like I really care about who's on my team, what they care about, our clients as well. We have like our ethics and all of that at the forefront. It's just like really not a toxic environment. Freedom is really like at the heart of what we do, that flexibility, just like loving your work. And I think that's all cool, but we are still following like a process and a system, which also is important. But I personally feel like I get stuck in like, why am I doing this? Like I
Yeah.
have those financial goals, I have those big business goals, and I believe in myself and I know that I will get there, but it's like, what is the bigger picture there? And like, I think I'm going to do that exercise and really dig deep. I'll let you know the result.
Yeah. So what you just did, so
What
thanks
did
for
I do? Tell
you,
me.
yeah. So uh, this, you've got the goals,
Hmm.
you've got those, you're doing the right things, but there's something inside of you that's like, oh, there's something more I want to, oh, that follow
Yeah.
that's really important. Follow that feeling, follow
Mm,
that's a little string to a yearning that can unpack all the creativity, that can unpack so if you can imagine, so if we go back to our path,
Yeah.
okay, so asking yourself these questions regularly,
Hmm.
and then first as a leader asking yourself these questions, and then taking that to your team too, and like co-creating a vision with your
Mm.
team. It's so much fun. um but so so defining what it is, what is that North Star, what's the vision, and through that process you might uncover new streams of business, new areas of focus,
Yeah.
new opportunities, new ways to be creative and support your clients, new areas for growth and freedom for yourself as a business leader.
Hmm.
That process is going to unlock those pieces for you, and that's what makes creating a business and continue to co-create a business so much fun.
Hmm.
That's like the most fun part about business.
Yeah, people like there's a huge creativity aspect to it. Like
Yeah.
I happen to run a creative agency, so there's like that creativity, but
Yeah.
like I started off myself in school as a designer, right? Like I would never did the fine art stuff. I actually hated it. But I like loved the digital stuff. So I always would like edit pictures on my own, then eventually went into a path, studied graphic design, computation arts, all of that stuff. And I was a graphic designer and freelancer at one point, and then kind of got to this place. I always loved the leadership aspect of business, but there's the creation aspect of
Hmm.
business too. It's like, it's weird. I like nerd out over project management tools.
Yeah.
Like how can we make things more efficient? It's like this whole puzzle, and it's like these little things that kind of excite me. And, some business leaders are not always the most organized, but I think that's like one of my strongest suits. So whenever someone comes on my team and I feel like they're lacking in that area, I'm like, am I just exceptional, or like can people not do this too? Like it's so wild, but it's fun to be like obsessed with
It's
building the
fun.
business. Yeah.
It's fun to be obsessed with your business.
Hmm.
It's, as entrepreneurs, we have, this is, there are some really hard parts about business, like
Yeah.
very, very, very challenging parts about business. And then there are some exceptionally incredible parts about business that we wouldn't have an opportunity elsewhere. Like, so this is the this is the juiciest part, is the creation. And so spending time in that visioning process. And again, I do it everyone's going to have their own process. I journal every morning, and I
Hmm.
journal about my greater life vision. But so much of that in this season of my life has to do with business,
Yeah.
and where I see my business going, and how I see myself evolving in this business, and what that looks like for my family and my life, and all the things in my life vision. So it's defining and getting clear on where it is you want to go. And then, so that's step 1. Step 2 is to like I call it like come back home to yourself. And that means like quieting down all the noise, all the outside noise, all the advice, all the experts, all the wisdom, all the things. Shut it off, turn it down, come back home to yourself, and try to access that still wise voice inside of you that seems to know something that the rest of the world or your monkey mind doesn't know yet. And some people, again, call that gut, wisdom, intuition. Spend more time accessing that part of you. And I like to imagine that that part of us is trying to shine a spotlight on the path towards that North Star.
Hmm.
And we only have access to 1 to 3 steps at a time. So I literally imagine my soul shining a spotlight on a path, and I can only see 1 to 3 steps ahead of me. That's it. It's
It
all I
helps
have
to like
access to.
not overwhelm you, right?
Exactly. I can
Hmm.
I can feel into where I think we're going, and I can sense into where I think some milestones or some goals might be. But truth be told, who I am in 3 steps is actually different than who I am today, or
Hmm.
what I know in 3 steps, and the information that's been revealed, or the when we take those next best steps anchored from that place of wisdom inside of us, the path continues to unfold and unfold and
And gets like a
unfold.
little clearer,
And
right?
every step we take, the
Mm-hmm.
vision gets clearer, the details get clearer, the new information becomes available, or the right person comes into our experience, or the right idea is generated, and that is the unfoldment of building of running a soul-led business or a soul-led life, period.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that a lot. Whenever I feel like I'm giving my personal well-being more attention, I actually see a direct correlation with like the growth of my business. And even though I know that, I'm not always good at like putting that time aside. I used to be amazing. And then something happened and I started getting off course and I was getting overwhelmed, and I really owe it to myself to like get back into that. But I've seen it I do it all the time. I kind of like go in and out of these waves where
Yeah.
it's like, all right, like I'm really focusing on myself, and then my business grows and I'm like, oh my God, this is so amazing. I can't believe this works. Like I know that this works. And then I get back into the same, oh, I'm overwhelmed. We have too much going on. And then
I
I
don't
have
have
to like
time for
get
that.
myself, exactly, get
Yeah.
myself back on track. But I know the thing is, I know that it is so supportive in your business. And I think it's like in that downtime, that's when all those things come to mind, right? The ideas, the vision,
Mhm.
the knowing. You need the silence, you need the break in order to make space for what those next steps may be. Otherwise, you're just kind of like stuck in this hamster wheel.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's advice I'm giving
absolutely.
myself too. I know it. It's funny. We
Right?
we know the things we need to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the knowing. That's the strong knowing that is coming from something deeper inside of you.
Okay, so let me ask then, for someone
Okay.
like me who knows these things, okay? It's in my mind,
Yeah.
but sometimes I'm a little stubborn and my rebel is like,
Yeah.
nah, you don't need to do that.
Yeah.
Like, how do you suggest someone who's in this situation that knows this is good for them, that knows they should take that time to relax, rejuvenate, meditate, journal, whatever it may be, but they just have a hard time getting back into that routine? Like, what should we
Mm.
do?
Okay, great question. Um, I've built in what I call mind reset practices into my day.
Okay.
And I guess the motivation that I have to do these mind reset practices is because I know without a doubt, unequivocally, without a doubt, that if I want to go where I want to go in this vision, if I want to get there, in the quickest, most direct path to get there is inside of my alignment. My alignment is my portal to that.
Mm.
And I think that one thing that helps me stay very, very connected to that is this process of of journaling about my vision every single day. I think that might be actually the most valuable mind reset practice I do.
Do you feel like it gets repetitive though?
Um, it can, but it's also it's also really creative. So I'll give you some examples of what I do in in this process. I might start writing about my vision, and then a problem that I'm like chewing on in the back of my subconscious mind. Maybe it's like a decision I have to make, or maybe it's like a, a call I have to have, or an awkward conversation, that something that feels out of alignment is like popping up into my conscious mind. And then I start that comes up into my journaling, and I start working that through, and I start self-coaching
Mm.
through that. And then through that process, I'm coming up with solutions, I'm coming up with my answers, I'm coming up with my next best steps. So it feels like it's a bigger process than just writing out my vision. It's like tapping into the energy of my vision and then allowing my next steps of the day or of the week like emerge through that process.
Yeah. Yeah. It's more like in the nitty gritty details. I see that. I think maybe I was going too like high level because sometimes I will break down certain things, but then I'll be like, okay, well, I did this yesterday. Like, why am I going to do it again?
Hmm.
Instead of seeing like, oh, have things changed today versus yesterday kind of thing, and like letting that evolve,
Yeah.
or maybe tapping into like something else that might be coming up. And I don't
Right.
know, probably like it's funny that I'm thinking about it. Like, I feel like I've almost like held myself back in terms of journaling also. And it's mostly with my business because personal life I could write for days. But with my business, maybe I didn't give myself that permission and I was like, "Hey, this is me time. Like don't pay attention to the business."
Yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying.
You know
Yeah,
what
like
I
very
mean?
much
Like
separating them.
yeah.
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 So, sometimes I have my every intention to do visioning, and I'm writing my vision. I always start with I am free. And then I'm writing a couple sentences and I'm like, "Oh, I'm not feeling it." And then I'm like, "Wait a second, what am I feeling?" Kind of going back to what you were saying earlier.
Mm,
Oh, I'm actually feeling really scared right now. I'm feeling
yeah.
lack. I'm feeling nervous about something. I'm feeling, oh, like really uncomfortable about that conversation I had yesterday. I didn't even realize. And so I let it come up. I let it come up in the journaling so that I can get it out of me, so that I
Mhm.
can clear it out of me, so I can come back to alignment. I see our businesses, for me, I see my business as the greatest outlet for personal growth. I think that business for me, entrepreneurship, I'm very risk adverse. I'm a very risk adverse person. Entrepreneurship was not built for someone as risk adverse as me. And
Or
so,
was it?
or what, yes, exactly. Or was it? But, and so I feel lack, scarcity, fear, you name it, on a visceral level with
Mm,
entrepreneurship. And so the space, the devotion, the dedication, and the space I've had to carve out for myself to do this has been, it's actually my number one priority. Otherwise, I won't do it. And it's not that I won't do it, but I'll be off in the bushes. My rebel mind will be leading the way. And I know what happens when my rebel mind is leading the way. I'm making poor choices. I'm having expensive lessons. I'm in fear. I'm in lack. And that I, I just can't live that way.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel that. I'm not gonna lie, this last year has been like my toughest year emotionally in business. And like you're saying, it's like it gives you kind of like that space for personal growth. I don't think I allowed it. And I trusted that in so many of the earlier years. And it's just it was just like one thing after the other.
Mhm.
And I see it now that I feel like I'm kind of on the other side of it. Like I fell victim of my circumstances and like I don't want to allow myself to like get there. I used to feel like I had better kind of control in separating those and not letting like one necessarily like affect the other or overwhelm me or let those waves ride and find that balance. And there was just something really chaotic about the last year. And
Mhm.
I think that that's another thing to kind of like bring to light and normalize for entrepreneurs. It's like not every year is going to be your best year, and that's okay. But remember that there are so many lessons on the other side of it because
Mm.
like despite how challenging it might be and despite the fact that you're like why the heck did this happen to me, it's like there is a reason why. And whether you choose to grow from that is ultimately up to you. But that's the way that I like to look at it. It's like, all right, so why did all of these happen all of these things happen from like a personal and emotional level? Like what can I do to better like regulate and make sure that like I don't lose myself again? But then also from a business perspective, like why did these things happen? And it's
Mm.
funny, like the parallel between like personal and business. I don't know, like I think it's really real. And it's weird because like as I'm talking, I'm like, I separate these things when I'm journaling, but like there's so much overlap in
They're
real
one.
life.
They're one.
Yeah,
There's
it's
no.
wild.
I truly believe it is wild. When we are creating something from our hearts, from our souls, we're creating something to impact the world in some way. It's a part of us. It's not a
Hmm.
job we're clocking in and out of. It's a
Yeah,
part of us. It is
yeah,
so deeply connected to our personal lives.
yeah. You just have like a different level of responsibility and, like you said, like connection to this thing. You're not clocking out, like you said.
You're
It's
dreaming about it at night. You're thinking about it when you're
yeah.
eating breakfast in the morning. It's
Yeah.
constant. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because, growing up, I have, some friends that are entrepreneurs, and I've built a circle of entrepreneurs that understand, that they get it. And I used to get frustrated with my other friends who like wouldn't even ask me about like, oh, like how was your business? How is this? How is that? And they're like, oh, well, like I never ask my friends about work because people always complain about it and like whatever. And I'm like, but no, like I love what I do, and like I'm excited about what I'm building, and like it's so much a part of my life. I feel like you don't care to know about it. But I think
Hmm.
maybe because they're not in that situation, they're not entrepreneurs, they don't fully understand or get it.
Yeah.
So it's cool to be able to connect with other people who are in the same space who just get it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think having that support system is pretty huge. It can be very isolating and lonely at times, but especially when you're building a team, I think like that's the coolest part for me has been building my team at Nomad Creative. And like I've had people now stick with me for a few years. So we have a relationship. It's not just like you're doing the work. It's, we
Mhm.
share personal stories and connect on that level, which is really nice, I would say.
Yeah. It's like a beautiful you know, unfoldment of your business. It's a beautiful expression of who you are.
Why did you decide to start your business, by the way? And
Mm.
how many people do you have working with you now?
So we have 12 employees.
Nice.
But when I started my business, I was one-on-one coaching, it's just me.
Hmm.
And so I just had this deep yearning coming back to the yearnings. I was in a corporate job for a decade,
Mm.
and I had a yearning. I wanted to help people. I wanted to find my vocation, like the vocation that was designed for my mind, body, and soul. And I found coaching. And when I found it, I said, this was actually made for me.
Love that.
And so I did my training while I was working part-time, and I graduated from my coach training the day I became a mother. So on the same day I became a
So
mom, and I
beautiful.
like, yeah,
Wow.
it was, and I graduated from my coach training. And so I just, after my second child was born, I decided that I can't, and I went back to work to my corporate job. I decided I can't be away from my babies if I'm not in a job that I'm not passionate about. And
Yeah.
so I worked to build my coaching practice up to a point where I could leave my corporate job, and then built a really thriving coaching business. And then the MRA happened because I was taking clients through the Mind Rebel coaching methodology, which is a methodology I created, which is essentially what we just talked about today.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
to do what we just talked about today.
Yeah.
And so many clients after our sessions or after our engagement were saying, can you teach me how to do what you just did for me so that I can do this for others? And at first I said no. I had no intention of being a teacher or opening up a school, but the if I practicing what I preach, and getting into alignment and focusing on one next step in front of the other, it was clear that a next step was to start the Mind Rebel Academy and see what happens. And that was 4 years ago now. And now we are a global organization coaching or training coaches and leaders all over the world. And we are accredited through the International Coaching Federation. And the rest is history, as they say. It was just that was my quick story of my path
Yeah.
to how I got here.
Well,
Yeah.
congratulations, honestly, on all your success. I can just tell like how amazing of a leader that you are. And I'm sure that anyone working for you feels the same and is, happy and excited to be by your side on this journey, as I'm sure you're going to continue to grow and hopefully take
Thank
over the
you.
coaching space.
Maybe one day.
Maybe one day. In terms of leadership and leaders, you deal with them all the time. That's basically your target and who you're supporting. Do you feel like leadership can be learned? And like, what are
Mm.
some of the qualities you feel it is essential for a leader to possess? to lead in the
Ooh.
way that we spoke about?
Oh, I love this question. So I define leadership. You can be a leader of a team. You could be a leader in your home. You could be a self leader.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's but one of the thing that I think is the most important quality a leader needs to possess is they themselves need to live deeply examined lives.
Go
They
on.
them they themselves they themselves need to create the space and prioritize the the self-awareness, the deep examination of their self.
Mm,
Um, when someone leads from their, I call that their most authentic selves, meaning their most aligned self, meaning they're in touch with that intuition, they're in touch with that wisdom, they're in touch with that soul, they're in touch with that vision. When someone can lead from that place, they are deeply inspiring for the team or the people that they're leading around them. They're when when someone is leading from their rebel mind, they're leading from a place of lack, scarcity, fear, not enoughness.
mm,
And that can create all sorts of funky energy in teams. That can create all sorts of funky energy. I believe as leaders, we actually have a responsibility
yeah.
to lead from this place because of how much impact we have on other people's lives.
Yeah.
Again, even if you're a leader, you're a leader in your home. You
Mm-hmm.
have impact on the people in your home. And so when we prioritize ourselves, when we get very self-centered, literally, and prioritize ourselves, we lead better. We are able to evoke greatness and brilliance from the people around us. We are able to innovate, be creative. We're able to not operate from a place of urgency and rushedness and micromanagement and all those things. And that's not to say I'm not saying I'm a perfect leader at all. I of course slip in and out of my rebel mind
Mm-hmm.
constantly because I'm a human being. But it's being aware enough to know I'm in my rebel mind right now. I'm not seeing this clearly. I need to go prioritize my realignment. I need to go do my mind reset practice. Maybe it's journaling. Maybe it's a coaching session. Maybe it's a run. Maybe it's a meditation, whatever it is, to come back home to myself so that I can approach whatever I'm dealing with or whatever's in front of me from a place of alignment.
Yeah, so that you're not kind of being
Yeah.
reactionary and just, responding in a way that maybe you wouldn't be proud of or feel happy with.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking of something while you were speaking, but I just got like so lost in your words. Anyways, maybe we'll take it offline if it comes
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
It's been really amazing having you, Taryn. Where can people actually no, one more thing before I send you
Yeah.
off. Our mindful minute, which I'm sure you're going to love. So we always end the podcast with what I call the mindful minute, where you get to share one piece of advice, whether it's business or in life, that you feel you can't really learn from a textbook, based on your personal experience. So what would you like to leave everybody with today?
Mm. Okay, I would love to leave everyone with the inspiration to carve out a little bit of time for yourself today and 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 carve out space to get in touch with that part of you that knows the way. There is a part of you, there's a part inside of every single one of us that has access to the greater vision for your life, knows what you most deeply yearn for,
Mm,
and knows how to get there. And the more minutes of our day we can spend with that part of ourselves, and we can spend in contemplation or in discovery with that part of ourselves, the more rich our lives become, the more clear our path becomes, the more clear our vision becomes, the greater leaders we are. There's no downside to it. There is only like life-giving upside to spending more time with that part of ourselves.
I love that. And as you said that, you mentioned centered, and I remembered what I was going to say, because I feel like for a long time, I've redefined this in my mind. but the idea of being self-centered had this like negative connotation to it. And I think can still have a negative connotation depending on who's looking at it from what perspective. And the more that I grew up and read and kind of defined my own version of what I think it is to be self-centered, it's really about like caring about yourself and putting yourself first. And one piece of advice that someone in my family had given me a few years back was that, you know, when you're raising a family, for instance, you have to take care of yourself first, then take care of the couple, the relationship, and then take care of your children
Mm.
and your family and everyone around you. And oftentimes, at least for me, I thought it was almost like the opposite. Like, you know, you become a mom, you lose yourself, your whole life revolves around your kids. But the whole concept and the whole idea behind that is that if you're not okay, your spouse will not be okay and your family will not be okay. So long as like you're caring and putting yourself first, then you'll have the capacity to support everyone else around you. And so for anyone listening that may have thought like, oh, self-centered is like a bad thing, change your mind on that, because
Mhm.
I feel like I was even like called out on that earlier in my life. And now looking back, I'm like, they just didn't like see it the same way that I saw it, you know, and that's okay. And everyone's going to grow and evolve and change in their own way. But I wanted to bring that up. So thanks for reminding
I
me.
I love that, and I think that a devotion to self-centeredness, devotion to this deeply examined life, devotion to yourself
Hmm.
creates ripples of change that will be felt in your families, in your communities, with the people you love and serve. It will be felt for generations to come.
Yeah. It's almost like lead by example, kind
Yeah.
of, if we want to put it simply.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay. Now, where can people go to learn a little bit more about you and the Rebel Mind Academy, Taryn?
Yeah, so you can visit our website at www.themindrebel.com. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all the socials. Um, we have a free 5 days of coach skills training. Maybe we could put that in the show notes for people if
Absolutely.
anyone wants to. It's a free 5 days of training where you get little bite-sized pieces of training around how to have a coaching conversation, either with others or with yourself. I mean, there's so much power. Everything we talked about today is about self-coaching, really,
Hmm.
and getting to that voice within that knows the way.
Cool. Love that. We're going to link all of that for you guys if you're interested. That's it for us today. See you next
Wonderful.
time. Bye.